What's up, guys? We're changing the inner tie rods on my 2008 Toyota Highlander. This is the third set of inner tie rods that I've got, and if you've been looking for them, you'll find that Toyota doesn't really sell them individually. They only sell the rack and pinion with the inner tie rods connected to that. And I ordered from a few different companies online, AutoZone. They all came back with the wrong inner tie rods. I did find the right ones though, and I'll leave a link to those in the description. Also, if you want to get them locally, you don't have time to wait, you can go to your like O'Reilly's or AutoZone, ask for inner tie rods for a 2008 Toyota RAV4, and they're a little bit longer, but they'll work. So there's that. So first thing we want to do is remove the tire, and then remove the bolt that holds on the outer tie rod, and I believe it's a 17 millimeter socket. Otherwise it will be a 3/4 socket, and we're just going to loosen that up all the way. And then what I usually do is I'll almost take off the nut, just so I can pound upwards to pop that out of place, and I leave the nut on just a little bit so that way I don't strip out the threads on the outer tie rod. Now I'm using 2 adjustable wrenches to break the nut free from the tie rod. This is what holds the alignment. When I take off the outer tie rod, I want to count the turns as I'm taking it off, and that way I'll know how many turns to do to put it back on.
3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 12 and a half.
So there's a clamp on the front and back of this little rubber boot here, and to remove the front one you can just use a pair of pliers and slide that off. And then on the back one you're going to have a metal one, which you'll want to use a screwdriver to kind of stick in this little section. It allows you to kind of pry it off and pry it apart. I've already done this, and the new ones don't come with a new clamp, so what I used was a zip tie. So in the video, that's why I have a zip tie on mine already, is because I've already taken this off and I realized I had the wrong part, so I had to reinstall it and I used the zip tie. But once you get that back clamp off, then you'll want to use some lubricating spray to kind of spray around the front, and that will allow you to slide this boot completely off. You'll want to save this boot unless you get new ones. Next, you're going to want to use this tool that's called a inner tie rod tool set. It's made by OEM Tools. You can rent these usually from AutoZone. Otherwise, you can purchase them for around $80 to $100. And this is what you're going to want to use to remove the inner tie rod. So the fitting you're going to want to use is, it's going to say 33.6, and you're going to want to put this on the inner tie rod where it has the 2 flat sides, and then you'll take the big green pole and basically slide that into place and lock that 33.6 into place. And then you just take your ratchet and you put it on the end of the green tube, and you're able to loosen it. And as soon as it's loose, you can just twist it right off. Screw the inner tie rod back into the rack and pinion. Use the big green pole to give it one good tighten in there. Slide the boot back on. Use some lubricating spray if you need to. Secure the back of the boot with a zip tie, and use the clamp that you use to hold on the front of the boot. Grab the lock washer, screw that on. Screw back on your inner tie rod, remembering to count how many turns you did to take it off. Secure the inner tie rod with the bolt. Use your adjustable wrenches to tighten the lock nut against the tie rod end. And that's it. Put your tire back on and you're good to go. Now if you notice that your steering is a little bit off or your alignment's off, it's because you didn't count the tie rod correctly as you took it off, or something's off somewhere in there. So you'll have to make some adjustments. Otherwise, you can always bring it in for an alignment. That's it. Thanks for watching.